We're ready.
So before we begin this meeting, I'm going to the first iteration of every committee meeting. The committees were selected their own, people chose what committees they wanted to be on. You will elect your own chairs. This particular committee is meeting in the second week of the month. So from a reporting perspective, legal does not have any reports that come to it. Finance meets right before the formal. So typically we get the charges report at that time. So we're looking at data from that month. This particular committee, because you meet in the second week of the month, if possible, Rob, if the report for the month that we are meeting in, aka this month is February, could be presented to this committee, if that's feasible. Is that something that works for you?
Everybody's got a copy.
Well, no, going forward, is that
Oh, yeah, no, that's
okay? So what will happen then is you will get a copy ahead of time. All of the departments will, as usual, submit their reports to the city clerk. They don't have to submit multiple times. And then they will get posted to the informal. And they will be available to the public and so forth. So the departments don't have to post to committees and also to the clerk. In Rob's case, because he is going to be meeting ahead of the informal, he will be submitting as informal. He will be. So
Let him mute,
Sorry?
let him mute his thing for a second.
What's happening? What's happening?
Can it mute it?
Oh, it's
Echo.
and turn your volume. It says volume.
Oh.
Got it.
No.
Hold on a second.
You're around.
Yes.
Okay.
Paper village, right? Yeah, okay, continue.
All right, so the only other thing I want to touch on is, in our organizational meeting, we went through, the rules of order for the common council. Some of these rules also apply to the committees. Some of them are really specific to the common council, how local laws, et cetera, are handled. But there is one rule that is relevant to all of the committees, to the informal, the formal, and to the committee subcommittees. And that is rule number 8, public comment. At the discretion of the chair, the floor may be opened to comment from non-members of the council on a question before the council or new business at the end of new business portion of the meeting. Not required that it be open to the public for comment. That's at the discretion of the chair. It is open to comment on a question before the committee. So if there is a particular issue about a sewer project or about a parking issue, a non-member of the public can make a comment. They may make one comment, no more than 2 minutes on any given question. So this is not a debate. It is not multiple comments or questions on the same issue. The chair may set a reasonable time limit for such public comments, and that's in bulk. So the chair may decide we will have 10 minutes of public comment, and at that point, cut it off. And comments must be addressed to the council, in this case to the committee, and not to other members of the public. As with council members, non-members must first be recognized by the chair. Any non-member seeking to speak must do so in an orderly fashion and shall not engage in conduct which disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting. If any person continues to engage in disorderly conduct after being warned by the chair to cease such behavior, the chair may order removal of said person from the meeting. This rule applies to all of our meetings. We would like to make sure that we have meetings where the public can comment. If someone has a factual question, such as how many of the 28 tickets that you issued in arrests this month, how many individuals were involved? Typically, there's more than one violation, so you might have 14 people generating 28 tickets. That's a factual question that can be answered. Questions around policy future that open things to debate, the appropriate approach is to take the question back and thank the member of the public, consider it, and if they want to submit a written comment, you can engage in discussion, but this is not a forum for open debate without limits. I just want to make that very clear. Any questions on this? Any questions, any raised comments, Gordon?
No, not.
Okay. We have a question from the public?
Two things, in terms of procedure, are council members, the department heads required to be in this room? Is. Can they,
I'm referring to open meeting law. You can research that on New York State's open meeting law.
does it apply to your meetings?
I'm referring to open meeting law, New York State. That's all I'm going to say on the topic. Any other questions?
I have another question.
Is there a different topic?
Yeah, and it has to do with, what a lot of people might consider vulgar language. What kind of words, do you have a list of words that aren't allowed to be spoken here? Because I've heard the SHIT word a few times in the past few years. Is that acceptable?
I'm not going to get into a list of what is and is not acceptable.
I'll take that as anything goes.
No, it does not mean that.
Well, would it help to have a list?
To do so in an orderly fashion and shall not engage in conduct which disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting. If you cannot make a distinction as to what is appropriate language in a public forum, that's not something I can help with. Any other questions?
Like pornography. I can't describe it, but I know it when I see it.
Yes. Yes. All right, so, I guess you're minority, right?
Yeah.
So you can now figure out the selection of the chair.
Sure.
Oh,
Ah, so you can organize them.
Did we open the meeting?
Yeah, meeting is open now, right? Yeah.
I don't think we did.
well.
Yeah, you should open the meeting.
This, February 9th meeting of the code and,
DPW.
Sure, just go. Got it.
Code and infrastructure meeting is now in session. Our first order of business is nominating and electing our chair for the committee. So if we have any nominations,
Yeah, I wanna nominate Jason.
I'd second.
Okay, Jason.
I'm willing to do it.
okay.
And,
All who agree, say aye. And
we have a.
oh,
I want to say,
do we have a co-chair?
we do on
We.
police and fire.
I guess it makes sense in case Jason.
Yeah. So, you wanna go?
Sure, I'd be
Okay.
co-chair
I mean,
or under chair.
I second.
Okay.
Thanks.
So, chair and co-chair. And, from there, I'll take over.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I think.
Andy.
So, I will just pass it over to Rob Perry to get us started to go through his report. That's gonna be the meat of our meeting. And then, common council can, or the committee members can ask some questions.
Yeah, before you started, this is the first meeting, that's why we don't have no agenda. But from next on.
Yes.
We're gonna have our agenda for prior to the meeting.
All right, so you wanna, since we've talked about it beforehand, what do you wanna say about submitting the report for the committee?
I just submitted a report a couple hours before the meeting, just like I did for the last 18 years,
Just back to the basics, kind of.
down to the base.
And then it will be officially put on the informal meeting, documents. And so, and it'll be the meeting, the minutes of the meeting that it happens in.
Right, when I emailed it to all of you guys, I copied Lyric, so
Yeah.
she can, whatever Linda needs to add to it, then add at it.
That's all your vote.
Benny. All right, so we didn't have a January meeting, so septage for last November was 43,824 and December was 34,000. We did finish out the year at $527,495. The revenue budget was 525,000, so we exceeded by a very small amount, $2,500, but the important was we meant that revenue. And, you know, one of the things that people either realize or don't realize is that septage represents about 0.5% of the total flow that goes through the sewer plant, and it represents 32% of the revenue. So if any of you can calculate margin, that's a pretty good margin. The with the sewer project, the capital project, as some of you are new, we have a $68 million capital project, that will be in two phases. The first phase, which is in design now, has been for a number of months. We expect to have, first drafts probably in March, and then from that point, once we have to send it to DEC has to review, comment on. We're hoping that we'll have something ready for the bid in April. But, it'll probably be a $30 million project, this one phase. And it's basically Columbia Street from Second up to Park Place. And, this is the old stone sewer that's from the 1830s and replacing it with brand new sanitary and storm lines.
Rob, excuse me, would you rather talk about certain things like this as we go or come back at the end?
If you had a question, go ahead.
Just trying to envision the logistics of Columbia Street during that time and, maybe specifically since you said you went to Park Place. Or specifically, I'm thinking about that area, but maybe Third too, and all, I mean, is Columbia shut down?
Well, Columbia Street, right now, we're looking at putting both of these two mains on the south side of the street. And the contractor would be responsible for maintenance and protection of traffic, which means they're gonna have to have flaggers all day, sending the traffic one way up, one way down, alternating. There won't be enough room for two-way traffic, that's for sure.
Do you think we'll
But it's
eliminate?
not, sorry, it's not fully closed down. That was,
That's what he's
Yeah, okay,
saying, I
sorry.
think. But-
Yeah, I mean, our goal is not to. There will be some times when if they need to do crossings, or any other infrastructure, like a structure that, Maine takes, basically twice the distance of the main that's going in for the excavation. But when you start talking about a manhole, which is a structure, they have a much larger footprint. So there may be times when we'll have to detour trucks around. Obviously, at some point, we'll need to have a planning meeting with, DOT, because we're gonna try and detour as much as we can, from nine, out on 9, and keep it out of Hudson altogether. But, there will be some local detours that will happen for traffic from time to time.
Do you think parking will be eliminated on Columbia?
Yes. Parking will definitely be, it'll be block by block, so it's not gonna be all at once.
Yeah.
And usually, what they do is they create a bubble. So, wherever the excavation is, they do about, if they're gonna do 100 feet a day, they usually go up 100 feet and down 100 feet. And once the bubble moves, then the area of no parking shifts with it.
Okay,
Luckily, Columbia Street is one side parking, so.
Yeah.
It's simple.
But there will be, like, in that 200 block, there'll be times when there won't be parking on the side that there is now, because traffic will have to go there to get around
Hmm.
the
Could be.
excavators and equipment.
For those temporary times, it would just. be-
Right, it's just gonna move along with it.
do you think specifically up by the park is uniquely challenging or?
Actually, it widens up after, 7th Street. Most people don't realize it. If you've ever pulled out of 7th Street and tried to take a left onto Columbia Street, you realize it. Cause you're at a stop bar and there's a building in your face. So you gotta creep out into the intersection. So, it actually eases up once we get around the park.
question about the storm drains and then the sluiceways, and are those, as the infrastructure project progresses, are we taking those out and filling them, or are you putting in the same spot, or,
No, because we
Just
can't put them in the same spot because the stone sewer has to remain active
right?
until
you're totally done?
everything is completely done.
Yep.
And then we migrate it over, and at the end, the stone sewers will be filled with flowable fill concrete. Because,
From the top down kind of thing?
yeah,
No kidding.
which is what we did on the Union Street project, 2 years ago. And the reason is, it's still a piece of shit, 200-year-old stone sewer.
That was that word.
I know. That's okay.
Well, technically it is full of it, so,
So, if we didn't fill it, it would be a void,
yeah.
And
that-
eventually,
That's, yeah.
it would
I know.
collapse and,
Yeah, no, they're like, what, 5x4 on Columbia?
Right.
It's huge.
and, cause at the end of all of this, we're actually gonna have a paved Columbia Street, that's, everybody will complain about the raceway. I mean, right now, we can't pave it because everything underneath it is garbage,
Yeah.
so.
So even though you mentioned the south side, you think the full pavement won't?
Oh, we'll do the whole street, because by the time we do restoration and rebates, there will probably be a 4-foot section on the other side, so we're just gonna go curb to curb. I mean,
That was my second question, so appreciate you answering.
okay,
Thank you, Rob.
sure.
Any other questions?
So and while we're in design phase for this Columbia Street portion, they're starting the survey on the second phase, which is a separate $30 million project, and that's Green Street, Upper Columbia, Fairview. The good news is that section is a lot smaller, so the amount of footprint for the construction and upgrade is significantly smaller than the larger mains that will be on Columbia Street. The downside is that it's much more densely populated. So there's going to be lots of laterals from houses that are gonna have to, crisscross the road. That's something that on Columbia Street, on the 200 block, yes, but once you get above 300-400, there's not a whole lot of services that have to be
Right.
connected.
Right.
The extreme cold, this is at the sewer plant. Most of the processes are either underwater or within a building. The clarifiers are not, they are the exception, so by nature and by design, these white bars, if you will, at Seagull, they move extremely slowly because we want the solids to settle out and they scoop it. But when it's -4 and these things are creeping along, it actually has developed ice, and you can see it's putting pressure on some of the flights, and some of the flights, they're fiber reinforced plastic, so some of them have broken, they have to get replaced. So that's, but that's just a weather related issue. This was on up on State Street. There was a sinkhole that was called in. We did a preliminary excavation and we realized that it was the lateral service from the house. But this is, gives you an idea. This is not on Columbia Street. This is on State Street, and you can see there's a brick sewer, and the bricks actually are latticed. There's 2 courses, so one row of bricks goes this way, and the next row of bricks goes this way. And so in order to do the repair, they had the green pipe is the new lateral from the house. And then they actually had to create a form on the inside and the outside and then fill it with concrete. So that way it would lock in the brick and lock in the pipe and not create a weak point, so that we're back there, another year or 2. Water department inside the plant. Picture on the left. These are all original, so they're 20 years old. The green pipe has a valve in it, and the kind of gray thing alongside of it is an actuator. Basically, what the actuator does is it makes the valve a smart valve that knows based on flow whether it should be open a little bit, a lot, or any degree in between. They're all tied in through SCADA system, and that's how the process operates. They start to get a little hinky after a while, so we're going to be replacing them filter by filter over the next couple of years, and then we're starting with filter 1 this year. They are about $10,000 a piece. The actuators and the valves themselves are a couple $1,000s. This is a picture of the bridge on Fairview Avenue, the DOT bridge, and I was under the impression that our water main went under the tracks, and apparently there's alongside the bridge. I never poked my head over, so there you go, fun fact. We've had several water breaks this season. Obviously, that when it's extremely cold like this, the frost line penetrates deeper into the earth, which puts pressure on the mains below it. And so we've had, there's a list, 6th and Columbia, 2nd and Union, Spring Street is here. We had a contractor come in and back that out for us because of the depth. We've got in front of the bank down on City Center and Glenwood. And also, the other one, Spring Street and Raleigh. And, a couple of little hydrant stories, on the side, car on Glenwood hit the hydrant and, ripped it. You typically don't see the water come out like that, except in the movies. In this instance, the breakaway flange and there's a breakaway connector for the stem. And for whatever reason, that didn't quite snap like it's supposed to, and it tweaked the puck that's inside, and so we had some water. They shut it down with the valve, isolated it, and then repaired it afterwards. And, obviously, we've had a lot of snow. We do have about 230, 240 hydrants that are out there. So the fire department, the water department have been chipping their way through opening up the hydrants, but if anybody feels like putting a little elbow grease into it, they're certainly welcome to grab a shovel and dig one out if you want. Switching to snow. So, on the, I think they towed about 44 cars the first time we did snow removal back in December. And so this is a picture you see. It's kind of hard to tell. You've got one car that's on the side for the whole, 4 blocks, and all the other cars on the opposite side. So, you always get the, I didn't know, or how was I supposed to know? Well, and people say, how do we get the word out? Well, for me, if you have 450 cars that are parked right and 40 cars that aren't, we got a 90% accuracy. So, I'm checking that off as a win. At what point are we in the lowest common denominator business where people just don't care? They don't want to, the Hudson Hub, there's websites or social media, there's out there. Oh, by the way, when we were doing snow removal, we put the signs out. The last 2 nights, the tow truck said, don't bother calling us because there were no tows. Because lo and behold, everybody realized that cars were gonna get towed. So, we had 100% compliance in our later days of snow removal.
If anyone's listening, would like another push for Hudson Hub, we're getting more notifications recently, and I think it's great. So please sign up.
Just the shear pins, just kind of if anybody has a snow blower knows that there's shear pins in there. It's a sacrificial part so that they break. That way you don't damage any part of the drive systems or whatever. The large snow blower has exactly the same thing, just slightly larger. It's, depending on how the snow goes, if it's wet or heavy, we can break them, several times in a block. And if it's nice and crispy and really cold, you can go several blocks without them fracturing.
How long it take to change the shirt?
About 10 minutes. But that's, but that's 10 minutes, that everything stops, there's, all the trucks are stopped, the blower stopped, everything stops. So, over the course of the night, it can add up because we make, if we do on a normal, not 18 inches, but if we have like 8 or 10 inches, we do snow removal, we can do 9-10 miles of road in a night. So every time a shear pin breaks, it cuts down on our, makes it work later. We also have, they talk about sidewalk clearing. So here's 2 examples. The example on the right, they cleared before the snow go came through all the way out past the curb. So when the snow go came by, we grabbed it, and you can see that there's very little left behind. The picture on the left, they shoveled space, but the snow does not go up on the sidewalk, it rides along the curb, so that bank gets left behind. Back to the, this happens to be, the snow, when you shovel it, you think you're shoveling a lot of snow, but this is one of the places we deposit snow. And there's 3 of them throughout the city, and you can just kind of get an idea that the picture with the backhoe, that reaches about 13 feet high. So, there's a lot of snow there, and that's 1/3 of the city that was moved in that last storm. And what else we got here? And this is just, the procession itself, where you got trucks lined up. We do use couple of contractors, and we do that because our trucks are about 1/3 of the size of the contractors, and so obviously they can carry 3 times as much. if, we were to use our trucks alone, the snow blower would be idle a lot of the night, and, you know, that's not good. We want to bang this stuff out, as quickly and efficiently as possible. And,
Were you with the contractor? I mean, where the contractor from?
this time we had, two from McCad and two from Cartwright. So we've used different ones on and off, throughout time. You know, we like to make sure we get the biggest trucks that we can get, obviously, you know, so they can move the most volume.
So you have to contact with them before prior year, or it just like you just called and?
They know, that we've, you know, most of these we have relationships we've been using for a couple of years. So if they know if we're getting a foot of snow, that we're probably gonna be looking for some. And sometimes I can do multiple trucks and sometimes they can only do one, and then, you know, we go down the list and add a couple more. We'll start making calls. So here's the, you know, picture on the left is the fleet, you know, kind of one on a break. And, on the right, we did, the snow blower itself is up at Nortrax. The clutch started to go on our third, day of removal. We, you know, we had mechanics tighten things up and get it ready, but, it does work, but it's, you know, if we get another event where we're gonna have to go multiple days, we don't wanna be in a position where, you know, we've got another foot of snow that we need to remove and all of a sudden the snow blower doesn't work. So, that should be fixed next week, and the repair for that is about $5,000.
How is your overall snow budget?
Well, then we're getting to that.
We're getting to that.
That's about 3 full pages.
Okay.
Just as a comparison, my daughter's in Dallas and they received an inch of snow. And, that's what the roads look like with an inch of snow and the sidewalk. And, the city was shut down for 4 days. Literally.
You just wait till it melts, I'm guessing.
They did, yeah, it was, you know, after the 5th day it was 55.
That's.
Yeah, so. Lucky to be them, I guess. All right, so a couple of the things that we're dealing with because this is a very, active season. So we bid the, so every year, the state of New York puts out a bid for, rock salt on behalf of all the sub-municipalities, state agencies, school districts, counties, villages, cities. And they send us a one-page form, and at that point, in the month of May, we're supposed to commit to how much salt we believe we will use in the next season. So, you know, but it comes with strings. So string number 1 is we have to take 50% of it. So I couldn't say I want to bid 10,000, you know, tons and only use 500 tons. You know, because obviously they would have all the salt up that no one use. And if you don't use the 50%, you have to pay storage for a ton. And that storage goes until the end of the calendar, goes until the end of the calendar year, which, you know, who's using, the contract recycles in September. So who's using salt in September, October, November? I mean, maybe Messina, but, you know, not us. So, you know, there's that we have to be conscious of. It's also, you know, we're guaranteed, to exceed our quota, but there's price escalation. So, at 100%, you know, the state's rate that was bid for Columbia County was $69 a ton. If we go up to 20% more, which, we bid 700 ton, we're at, you know, well, I'll get to that next page. If we were to exceed by 20%, we'd have to pay a 10% premium. If we went over that 20%, we pay another premium, pay a 15% premium, and we're good up to 150%. After 150%, they politely tell us to go on the open market, and now you're gonna be paying, you know, what private haulers pay, without having the contract. So, it can get dicey. You know, my first year here, the snow bid was low and we had an ice storm in December and they used like 400 ton of salt because, you know, ice is ice and you gotta chew through it. And, so we ran through our allotment rather quickly. So they do enforce it. Here's where we are with this year's budget. So we started out with $30,000 for the point one account, which is personal services. So what this account pays for is shift differential and overtime. So if somebody from this is their home account is street maintenance, they still get paid their street maintenance account out of their home account. If they pay overtime, then that comes out of the point one account. And
You've got yours there. I was gonna ask that.
so, so in the instance of this calendar year, we did have pay period one, which is out of this fiscal year, but that was actually for snow overtime in 2025. So that's what I've done. So even though this season, we spent $32,000 on overtime, we've. And you can have it if you want.
I'm not seeing the numbers that you're showing here.
Page.
It's almost to the end.
There you go. Thank you.
So, so out of the 2026 budget, between pay periods 2, 3, and 4, we have, incurred cost of $29,103 out of a $30,000 budget. So essentially, there's no money left in the snow overtime budget, which means two things have to happen. One, we no longer do any snow treatment after 3 o'clock in the afternoon on any nights, overnights, or on the weekends, which I think is pretty much continuous, or we're gonna need more money. And, it's gonna be, we have, an event that looks like we're gonna come through tonight with, it's an Alberta Clipper, so it might only be a couple of hours, but it's gonna be a couple of hours. It's gonna be all overtime for everybody that's out. Another system coming through over the weekend. And if it's on Monday, which is a holiday, it's double time from the time the guys come in. So, yeah, this account is definitely gonna need money, for sure. And it has less than $1,000 left in it. And, as far as the salt, right at this point, we bid 700 ton. We was. Well,
I just have a question, Steve.
sure.
So when we were going through the BEA, I completely get what you're getting. We were anticipating an average type year, which is what we're budgeted for, which is so far, so we're still in February. And we've, as you pointed out, already exceeded what we anticipated. Could you make any estimate of, perhaps for the finance committee, I don't think this month, or perhaps next month, as to how much more is going to be, is that possible?
Well, usually, I'll get to that too, later page. Yeah. So, and, on the same path for the salt, and the contractors, they get paid out of the point four account, which is the materials and supplies account. So for salt, we've, received, 688 ton out of the 700. What we ordered in December of last year does count towards the state's quota. It doesn't count in the 2026 budget, so I blacked that out. So at this stage of the game, there's $62,000 in that account for 2026. 40,000 of it is salt. The snow blower repair is $4,700, and the contractor hours for their hauling during the snow removal is another 12,600. So at this stage of the game, we're about 92% of the way into that $62,000 budget. So that, is certainly gonna need some money, but probably not as much as the one account, at least at this stage of the game. So if you look at the next page, what you'll see is, so I do trends over numerous years when it's budget season. The BEA only look at the last 2 years. So if you were to, so 2025 was still ongoing, those numbers were available. Didn't know where we're gonna end up. So they have 2023 and 2024 numbers. So if you look at 2023 and you look at 2024, you've got 85,000 for 23 and 98,000 for 24. If you split the difference, you come up with $92,000, which is the BEA award. So I'm gonna, not often do I run to the defense of the BEA, but I will at this, certainly at this time. But the reality is, if you look at the 9-year trend, which is the numbers I use for my budget request, you can see that it's easily over, it exceeds $100,000. So,
Sorry, Rob, for what it's worth. During those discussions, I did point out that taking numbers from two pretty light years was maybe not so good.
yeah, but it's snow. I mean, it's like betting red on roulette, right? I mean, just because it comes out 3 times in a row, doesn't mean it's gonna come out again.
It's also more expensive on holidays.
So might be more stable.
Yeah, so, I mean, you can see it over that, we've had years where it's been 125,000 and years where it's been,
75.
74.
there you go, 75,000. So, if we could schedule it or put the dome up or whatever, then, be a lot easier. So, anyway, I did happen to notice, I did happen to take the liberty of, there is a contingency in the 2024 or 2026 budget. So here's a sample resolution. Maybe all of you hadn't seen resolutions before. I wasn't sure if you'd seen one or not, but that's what they look like. That's a sample, but obviously the BEA would have to determine what account it comes from next.
So probably a good time to talk about resolutions, okay, Margaret, if you want to add in, but this came up in other committees. That generally, I think this type of resolution, you could submit directly to the common council. If there was some project that we discussed and wanted to develop, that we would create a resolution together. But this is not something we need to
Yeah, but everything have to go through.
approve and send to the council.
Okay, one of the things, Rob, that I want to make sure of, and you have given me information for the resolution we had last meeting, is that whenever, no matter what it is, somebody in the room needs to be able to explain why it's there. In this instance, it's very clear. You need to bring contingency money in. If other members of the council have questions, members of this committee know why we have this resolution and they can speak. I think that's very straightforward, right?
Easy peasy, lemon squeezy.
Yeah.
So that'd be your intent, Rob, to go forward with this as is? Or
Well,
wait on the number?
usually I reach out to her ladyship of the treasury and find out what's, because I don't know what this contingency, it may be earmarked for something, they usually are.
Yeah.
Because it does have an impact on the tax rate. But, like I said, it was just a discussion.
So do you know how much you're going to be asking for yet, or do you know?
Well, I would say, at a minimum, 10 grand for the overtime, until we determine, unless something crazy happens in these next 2 storms. That gives, because you also have to remember, the 2026 fiscal year also includes, once we get through this, it also includes November and December,
Yeah,
which, we don't want to be in Christmas season and not have any money because we want to make sure that we support our local business, especially during their haymaker of a month.
Do you recall a year that was particularly troublesome and had to get well beyond the contingency, or how was it handled?
We've had years when we've blown the budget out. It's just, we had 2 26 inches that started on Christmas Day, maybe 2010 or 11. I think that storm was 40,000, 50,000 easily. So like I said, if a storm comes in at 7 in the morning and ends at noon, and they can push back, and then they can come back a couple hours early the next day, and it doesn't need to have snow removal, then it's, but if it's a storm that takes place on a weekend, obviously that everybody's on overtime the minute they start. And if it's on holiday, everybody's on double time the minute they start.
Yeah.
And that's what that appointment account is. So, there's a lot of factors. So, switching gears to the parking sign. So people, obviously are aghast at everything. And they want to know why the signs are so high. The reason is because we have to use these streetlights. There's a couple things at play. One of the things is we use the streetlights to put other signage on several times throughout the year, Pride, Flag Day, you know, any types of other notices or events. And so we wanted to make the sign so that way it didn't conflict with no parking signs, and that's them having, you know, sitting on top of it. That said, if you look at the picture on the right, the signs are mounted to channels. The U channel fits in the grooves of the light. There's a clamp that goes around, so if it was absolutely deemed to be disastrous to the people that these signs were too high, we could unscrew them, slide them down to whatever height anybody would like. So we wanted to put this out here and we'll see how it goes. That decision will not be made by me, I can tell you that, or the DPW. We just are the guys with the screwdrivers.
I'm not sure if they made by this committee.
I think it's
No,
probably parking, which hopefully is
Probably
involved.
Yeah, I'd like
Developed
others
by
handle that.
police.
Yeah. So anyway, that's just, you know, I know there was a whole lot of caterwauling out there. So you know, it is fun. And the other reason why we use the streetlights, originally the plan was to use the existing posts that were out there. You know, they were little guys like this.
Yeah, super.
So if you were a Lilliput, you know, you could even use it. But the other concern was that those posts only exist between Third Street and Eighth Street, and we're expanding the footprint. So if we stayed on the same format, we would have to install, which is drilling, which is conflicts with
Yes.
underground utilities for the streetlights. And, you know, buying materials, concrete, you know, so, whereas the streetlights already exist, so it was a kind of a ready spaghetti, thing. To that end, about the posts, we took them out, they would cut them with the saws off, there was a little bit of a lip, they kind of pound them down a little bit, throw some concrete in there, and you can see the concrete wet, and then the concrete dries. And, you know, they'll even off, over time.
Are all the signs up, or do you still have work to do?
I don't think they're all up, but I believe all that we have are up.
Question, I noticed some of the posts are still there. And some of them have signs on top now and most do, some.
Like on Seventh and
Yeah, like on Sixth and Seventh.
Yeah.
Was that a decision that you were instructed on? Obviously, right? You were.
The what?
So it's like the ones that where the meter was taken off.
Yeah.
And a sign was put on top.
Well, that was the original plan. Is that,
no street lamps.
Are there signs on it?
those- On Seventh and Sixth.
On
Oh.
South Sixth Street and on the 600 block. of
well, the
Union.
streetlights stop at the alleys.
No, the meter post.
Okay,
Yeah, because the street light stopped, so you probably had to put it on something. I was just curious if there was any thought of maybe that not being a permanent solution. Because seeing the careless way some of our visitors mill around and have a lot of little kids maybe, and on a busy street in the middle of the summer, they don't pay as much attention as we all would like. And I think that 3.5 foot height is perfect for some little kid to smack his face on. And then, I don't know, maybe we could think of a solution for the future and just those small blocks where you had no other option.
well, the solution, we would have to just
To put some
install
signs in.
an actual signpost in there. That would just be taller,
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
it's just materials,
something for
just materials, logistics, and, you know, it's not.
kind of immediate problems, just
It's
something.
a lot, you know, it's probably less than we would have done if we had stayed with that format and had to do the blocks below Third and.
Yeah, that would have been so much more work silly.
And then Margaret has a follow-up with something.
I think that should be referred to the safety committee.
Yeah.
Because they've got parking issues and so forth. They're also they're on the side streets.
Yes,
So I think that's probably the thing to bring up next month in the safety committee.
yeah, I was going to, I wanted to get Rob's point of view before.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an opinion either.
Yeah,
way. It's just, yeah, it's just money. Who's gotta pay for it?
Yes, you gotta do it in an efficient way. Thank you.
Put it in the agenda. so-
Yeah.
Let's see, things, close, da, da, da. Oh, so, anybody was wondering, this is what it looks like when someone's house is taken over by the city under foreclosure. This is the 98 Paddock. As you can see, they grabbed some of their belongings, not too many, left the rest of it behind. And years back, you know, we would dispatch a crew with the garbage truck and take all that stuff and pump it off to the transfer stations. Obviously, in discussions with the treasurer's office, is that's silly, because however, we're owed a certain amount of dollars, and anything over that is gonna go to the property owner that didn't pay their taxes. So what is our incentive to
Yeah.
use taxpayer, you know, equipment and tipping fees and labor to put more money in the guy's pocket who didn't pay taxes for 10 years? So, but anyway, unless you see something you like, you know, then make a deal.
Any good stuff?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Let's see, we also have Washington Hose received a call from them. There was some leaking. This is where the chamber is, and you can see that some of the flashing has come off of the corner of the roof. And, you know, we chipped away at it to try and break up the dam to help it move down, but that's, you have to bring the roofer in for that repair, button everything up. And this is just a cemetery, and the only reason it's here is because there's not too many things I haven't seen before, and I don't believe I've ever seen an interment. This is that little cemetery that's on the corner on Paul Avenue, and the gentleman was 93 years old, and the plots were purchased well over 100 years ago. So, anyway, that's what I got.
Cool. Great. Any other questions? No, I'd like,
Not for me.
I would ask the public to, they want to make a comment? Sir, yes, your name?
Well, Houston, I'd like to know, Rob, who decides what streets do and don't have the overnight, not even parking rule, and what kind of rule is on those streets? Because there's more than one rule, right?
Let me just.
Yeah, there are local rules. Some rules are, the default is alternate side parking unless there's local rules that are by signage. But that decision is made by the police department, not by me.
Police department what decision is that, sir?
Police commissioner decides.
What parking regulations are there?
Okay, so there's two of them, right?
To what?
Two parking rules. How many parking rules are there?
I don't know, you gotta talk to the police department.
But okay, you're not aware of them, but, okay. So
I'm not in enforcement, no.
oh, I totally understand. So, and the beginning of my question was, what streets do and don't have them? Who decides that? Police also?
Yeah, at some point, somebody made a decision.
So
There's, like I said, alternate side,
somebody saying, you think the police department?
at one point, yeah.
Okay, but the police department is making decisions that affect DPW, because DPW needs the rule to.
Well,
The police
the
committee,
police department don't work in a vacuum. They'll sit there and ask
Okay, let
for
Margaret speak.
various operations.
Let's let this finish, Margaret.
Sorry,
Okay,
just point of order, one question per issue.
okay.
That's the rule.
What I don't understand, and this is a comment, is, why Prospect Avenue doesn't have any, overnight rule, not at all. Nobody is ticketed on Prospect Avenue, at least the southern part.
Because there's odd
Excuse me, this is my, I didn't ask a question, please let me talk. I only have 2 minutes, it's not a long time. Prospect Avenue doesn't have, overnight rule, neither does Washington.
That was your 2-minute timer, Bill.
Okay,
I'd also like to know,
We'll let you
I'd just
finish.
like to put it out there that there's no rule on that street, there's no rule on Washington, from state to, on North Sixth, from state to Washington. Except the police will tell you, and Rob Perry may tell you, that it's all about safety, we've got to move cars. Well, then why aren't there any rules? Why doesn't every street have a rule?
Thank you for your comment. I'd like to ask Logan if there's anyone online with their hand raised.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I'd like to refer you to, the police department first. Those
You guys don't want to follow up with Rob and find out why?
That actually would be at the safety committee for that answer, but
He's right here. Go
it's not for him. It really isn't. It's always been the purview of HPD to set the parking rules in the city. So it's that,
So you don't want to know that Rob doesn't care what streets do and don't have rules?
it doesn't matter to him.
I don't.
Okay,
It shouldn't.
we're not gonna,
Not the rules.
let's not continue to engage.
He just enforces.
And you don't
He
care.
just doesn't.
I said North Sixth doesn't have the rule, you can't sweep them.
John Gage.
Yeah, generally, no, we just
Because it
don't
doesn't
wanna, we don't wanna debate too much here. We
Yeah.
can go back, we can reflect our thoughts, we can bring
Thank
things up at future meetings. The only other thing that I wanted to ask was whether members of the committee had things in mind when they joined this committee, things that they'd like to accomplish during their terms, things that maybe Rob and DPW could, or we could help with or bring to the council. Anything? Ron? Henry, did you?
I will, get back to you, use it as homework.
Well, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. If no one has anything, I'd like to just like,
There are a few things I'd like to work on, but I do believe that since it's just our first, it's a little premature for me to delve into everything, because I'm still a little unfamiliar with the entire processes of DPW. So
yeah, I
Like-
think
like,
we may
I'd
find
like
it
to table.
that there's just generally things around streets and stuff that we have and they may not be completely,
His signage is to be specific signage, the implementation of the parking, decision that happened last year.
okay?
Specifically that because it ties into safety pretty well, so I'd like to be more involved in that discussion.
Well, I get to answer that.
Yeah, a lot of it's already done, so,
100% of the locations were chosen by the parking
TT.
ticket bureau.
yeah, right. There, yeah, exactly. So I'm learning a lot of that
Yeah.
and, it's really on their end to make those decisions, to make it more streamlined for DPW and a little bit more communication there. Specifically on that and would make it more financially efficient if they're not working twice or putting up redundant things or taking down redundant things, or when somebody hits a street sign and DPW has to go out and fix it. Things like that, finding those people accountable. So if it's a delivery truck, you know, if the property owner says that truck's outside, it hit a sign and we get a ticket written, they could pay for it, and obviously that's in a perfect world.
Remember, Rob, I brought one up during our firehouse meetings. I literally witnessed somebody hit one of the streets.
Take them out all the time.
All the time.
That's why we put, breakaways on the traffic signs.
Yeah,
So
right.
the 2 bolts and switch out a piece of it. And it's a cost of doing business.
Right.
Margaret, the rest of your hand on?
Yeah, just, FYI, I was going to, once we get through the first of each of these committee meetings, I was actually planning to follow up with each committee chair so that we can come up with, agenda, for the year as to what each committee wants to focus on. I think there is going to be some overlap between this committee and safety. So, I mean, that's something we can work through. So, that is part of what I was going to be doing. And then in our informal meeting in March, by then I'll have met with every committee member, every committee chair, and we can scope out, okay, this is what we want to focus on this year.
Thank
I think in general, I'd like to take advantage of Rob's experience, as we can, whether it's specifically things that DPW would approach to be doing or not. And so where my head is at, that there's a number of things that Hudson's challenged by, and one of them is we're challenged by cars that cut through traffic that's never intending to come to Hudson, but because of the geography has to come through Hudson. And the fact that we have a high pedestrian population because of our downtown success, really. So that's something that I want to delve into. And maybe,
Walkable town.
yeah, just because of that those two things create conflict.
And we had that.
And how can we help resolve those conflicts? And I think Rob could have good advice for us.
Sure.
Yes,
Lord Kenny, I would just like to make a comment. I want to thank all you guys for your willingness to serve and all your good service. With that, I'm off to see the mayor.
nothing else online? No one else? No.
hand up.
Okay. Anyone else? Motion and second to adjourn?
Airport.
Adjourn.
Anything that's on code enforcement?